Okay, so last week we spoke about Rossi, we spoke about Sulzer. And I would say if there was a Mount Rushmore of Jewish choral composers, we would have Sulzer as one. The second one would be Samuel Naumburg. And so what Sulzer did in Vienna relative to nurturing a classical approach to synagogue music, Naumburg did the same thing in Paris as cantor composer at the city's great synagogue. He lived from 1815 to 1880. In 1843, Naumburg met Jacques Halevi, with whom he collaborated. Does the name Halevi mean anything to anybody?
Well, Judah Halevi?
No, not Judah Halevi.
Halevi Alcabez? No.
Halevi was a well-known composer in Paris at the time, and he wrote an opera called La Juive, which is a very interesting opera, and it focuses on the theme of anti-Semitism. It happens that my colleague in Akron, his wife, Kay Lipton, is an expert on it. And I've heard her give a lecture about La Juive. Excuse me, if there was interest up here, I'm sure I could arrange for her to repeat that lecture, but it was fascinating. So as I say, Halevi was an important composer at the time, and Naumburg collaborated with him. The French government commissioned Naumburg to arrange a service to be introduced into all French synagogues, and his work resulted in his earning the title of Chief Cantor of Paris. Included in his 3-volume opus, in addition to his compositions, are works and adaptations by the composer Meyerbeer, and 3 compositions dedicated to Rossini. Also of note, Naumburg re-edited Rossi's music along with Vincent Dundee, who was likewise a composer of note. I remember singing some of his art songs. The Naumburg editions of Rossi were actually the authoritative source for Rossi's music until about 1967, when Dr. Hugo Weisgall, who was chairman of the faculty of the Cantorial School at JTS, re-edited Rossi's music with greater precision. So we're going to listen to 2 of Naumburg's compositions. The first may be familiar to, because I think it's sung here at B'nai Yeshurun on the high holidays, the Sushiarim of Naumburg. Though the arrangement you're going to hear has been tweaked a bit. Also, I want to apologize in advance if anybody is offended by the fact that the recording, which features my good friend Ozzy Schwartz from Park Avenue Synagogue, this recording took place in the church, so I hope nobody is offended by that. And we don't have Machzorim, so I'm not going to give you the page. Although actually, if you want to look, it is, I can give you a page number. Okay. So this is from because it's also done in the Torah service, it will be done on Yom Tov rather than Shabbat. And let me see if it's here. It is. If you turn to page 424 and see your Shalom, if you want to take a look at the text. If you count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, the last word on the line. So once again, second paragraph. Wait, please. Okay, take your time.
Oh, okay. I recognize this.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay, I recognize this, definitely. It's a weekday, you put the Torah back
Correct.
on a
For
weekday.
weekdays, so
Yeah, right.
it may be done on a Yom Tov,
Yeah.
Yom Tov service.
Anytime
okay?
Yom Tov is on a weekday.
Mhm.
Yep.
Absolutely correct. But it's also done in the Malchuyot section for high holiday of the Rosh Hashanah service.
Right.
Okay. All right.
right.
You want to pull up the
Let me-
screen of the selections?
Let me get the selection. See that?
Yeah. See now on board.
Yeah.
Okay. First piece. Yeah.
Okay.
And I apologize again for the commercials that we're going to have to endure.
Ohio State residents, if you have a utility meter like this on the side of your house, you could get paid.
like this too.
The syllable's a little different.
who I know who has those notes.
That's pretty impressive.
Pull that off.
No, Ozzy was remarkable. The last time that the Pope was in the United States, Ozzy was
Mhm.
invited to sing. to the
Yep.
Pope.
We saw some YouTubes of that.
Yeah, so, okay, so that's one piece. The second piece that we're going to listen to of Naumburg's is, it's called Anatavo. This is the paragraph that comes before the Ashamnu on Yom Kippur. It's a piece that we used to do it in Akron as well. And I think, actually first learned this piece when I was in cantorial school. I don't know if you do it here. It is, I think, one of the finest pieces of choral music that we have. It is beautifully done, beautifully executed. As I say, this is the lead into the Vidui. We'll stop just before the Ashamnu because this piece actually incorporates the Ashamnu too, and we're going to hear it. But what's happened is that in most congregations who do the piece, as we did it in Akron, everybody's now so accustomed to the antiphonal congregational Ashamnu. Ashamnu, Magadnu, and the congregation repeats. So that part of the piece is really performed, but it's also handled antiphonally, as you'll hear. So let's listen to the Anatova. There's also a very nice introduction by Josh Jacobson. This is going to be a recording from the Zamir Choral of Boston.
A lot of people don't know this, but the best way to prevent divorce, stop separation, and win your wife back is
Perhaps the core of the Yom Kippur service is the ritual of confession, vidui. We are asked to acknowledge our shortcomings, our misdeeds, using the formula of an alphabetic acrostic. By acknowledging our faults, we begin the path to recovery. Cantor Samuel Naumburg's music sets the introductory text of the confession antiphonally between solo quartet and choir. Then the litany of sins is chanted by the cantor and echoed by the choir. Here we have a wonderful example of music that is monumental, great, holy, and yet simple. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most elegant. Or to quote music by Leonard Bernstein, sing God a simple song, for God is the simplest of all.
This is a piece of your repertoire.
This is my first year doing it. It was a reminder, and it was cut, and everyone who'd been in the choir for a long time was not happy about it.
Usually stop it there, and the printed music from the Ephros anthology also stops it there, so that then you can do the congregational and shamu. But listen to the way, again, when this music was written, there was no congregational singing. But again, you'll hear, I think that the music and the text are beautifully treated and beautifully interpret the text. So let's now listen to the rest of the composition. bring our people back on who are on screen so that we can see them?
Yes, do you want to see them right now with this up?
Yeah,
or-
yeah.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure. let's Back on and then we'll take your questions.
I'm gonna stop the share then, okay? Here's
Okay,
everybody.
please.
In the original setting of this piece, was the choir mixed, and was this an Orthodox or a conservative?
That is a good question. I've done some recent research on that. It certainly appears that at this point in history, they were all men. They have been boys singing, pre-adolescent boys singing
Yeah,
the top parts.
yeah.
And because I did some research on this, and it doesn't appear that women were really singing in the choirs for like the 1900s.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking because they're very distinctly soprano and alto.
Yeah.
parts.
They did that here back in the Cantor Meisel's days. That,
So, but I think I've got a hunch, just on the basis of the way this music was written. Because it wasn't written for like TTBB, it was written SATB.
Okay.
And I think that they anticipated that at some point women were going to be singing in the choir. I can't imagine otherwise.
Was this music was sung in like Orthodox synagogues?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
what's with men, yes,
With men.
because Zulzer was definitely serving in an Orthodox synagogue.
Okay,
Naumburg, I assume as well. There wasn't really reform.
right, it didn't really
Yeah,
exist.
reform maybe started to take off in Germany. And
Yeah,
when we talk about Lewandowski, we find that there's more liberal. I'm pretty sure that Lewandowski was using organ. But
Uh-huh.
again, not as far as I know, he was not using women in the choir yet either. Look, I think that the music became much richer and much more glorious once you could introduce women's voices into the choir. I think it's a much more beautiful sound from my perspective.
I can only go back to the 1960s, but by then, even at Heights Temple here, women were singing in the
Yeah.
choir.
Oh, I think in the States, even just, in conservative synagogues, probably by the 50s, women were singing in the choir, and certainly in Reformed congregations.
The choir
by the
was
turn of the
also
century.
hidden, in a lot of places, the choir was definitely hidden behind either out in a loft, behind something.
That, yes, they were hidden. And it's kind of interesting, I was very successful with my choir in Akron for many, many years. And, people asked why, and I think part of the reason was because the choir was not hidden. They were in a loft, but they were 100% visible. And people enjoyed looking up into the loft and
Mhm.
seeing them. I think hiding the choir, and I think it's an excellent point, I think that was problematic. I think that hurt, and nurturing an appreciation for choirs. And you didn't know who was up there. And the fact of the matter is that there, history shows that there were a lot of non-Jewish singers that
Uh-huh.
were being snuck up into the choir loft. Nobody knew, nobody knew.
Well,
So,
again, going back to the 60s here, I think the director of the choir was actually not Jewish, I believe, here.
that isn't halakhically problematic. However, I can tell you that I always had not only Jewish choir directors, but I had to have choir directors who could follow the machzor,
Sure,
because they needed to know where the Baruch Hu Baruch Shemos were.
Mhm,
yeah.
I needed them to be able to follow the service.
mhm.
So,
So I remember there being huge notebooks,
yeah,
everything transliterrated.
sure.
And so all the spots like we're
We had,
talking about were
we had
marked.
different notebooks for Slicha,
They were
and
about
Rosh
this
Hashanah, and
thick.
Yom Kippur, yeah. Yeah, did you have another question? No.
yeah, that's, yeah, I was just sort of thinking back in, the 19th century,
Right.
I
Yeah,
had the same question. I was like, what kind of synagogues were performing this? But
they were Orthodox synagogues.
until
Yeah, I'm
Lewandowski-
looking up. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to
ahead.
get some information here.
Yeah.
Samuel Naumburg, it was an Orthodox synagogue in Paris. Though interestingly, it says that there contained an organ, and there was the chief rabbi in France at one point published a tshuva that argued that you could have an organ. in Orthodox synagogues, interestingly.
It is interesting.
That's wild. My other question was the congregational Ashamnu that we do now. Do we know where it came from? Because you hear elements of it
You hear
in that.
elements of that,
Have
yeah.
we just sort of made it up over time? Did someone compose it?
I think that my guess is, and I could look it up, my guess is that it probably says traditional over the music, so they don't know who actually wrote it. But again, Naumburg Synagogue was Orthodox, Sulzer's was Orthodox. I think that Lewandowski's was probably more liberal. But again, but these were Orthodox synagogues, had choirs, and even into, in Brooklyn and Borough Park in the States, they had massive, male choirs, singing in the 50s and 60s and 70s. There's still some places that do it.
No less than Sha'arith Israel in New York, a 350-plus-year-old congregation has a choir. This is only 5-10 years ago. Very nice, very good one.
Yeah. And there was, and I remember the synagogue in Montreal. Yeah, that they had a all-male
And
choir.
actually, we're gonna hear a clip from them.
Oh,
at the
okay.
very end. That's Gideon Zellermeyer. Yes, I've got a clip to play for you from them when we get in a couple of weeks. All right, so let's go on because I do want to get through Lewandowski today.
Okay.
So if we had a Mount Rushmore of the great synagogue choral composers, you would have Sulzer, you would have Naumburg, and you would have Lewandowski, affectionately known as Louis Lewandowski. And Sulzer made his mark, as we know, in Vienna, Naumburg in Paris, and now Lewandowski in Berlin. However, unlike Sulzer and Naumburg, Lewandowski was not a chazan. He was purely a choral conductor and composer. It should be noted in contrasting Sulzer with Lewandowski that Sulzer started his career with complete power as its first cantor and official reorganizer of the synagogue service. His influence and authority were established from the very beginning, created by his position and strength by his great talent as a singing artist, which we discussed last week. Lewandowski, in contrast, started with practically no position, no office, no fame, merely as a poor young aspiring musician. As a child, Lewandowski was exposed to synagogue music as he and his 4 brothers served as mishorerim for their father, who was a shliach tzibur. Mishorerim were the singers who stood around the cantor. Okay. With the aid of Alexander Mendelssohn, a cousin of the famed composer Felix Mendelssohn, Louis Lewandowski received a thorough musical education. He was the first Jew to be admitted to the Berlin Academy of the Arts, where he distinguished himself as a musician. In 1844, the Berlin Jewish community invited him to organize a choir and serve as its director. Lewandowski was the first person to hold the office of choir master, which until such time was exclusively in the hands of the cantor. Lewandowski was fortunate to have worked with a very supportive cantor named Abraham Lichtenstein. In 1864, Lewandowski was invited to become choir director of the new synagogue in Berlin, where he was given the opportunity to create a complete service, not only for 4-part choir, which he'd been doing, but now with organ accompaniment as well. As I mentioned last week, Sulzer's music, if you look at his anthology, does have organ accompaniment, but from what I understand, the organ accompaniment came later, was actually written by his son. Like Sulzer, Lewandowski was honored not only by the Jewish community, but by the government as well. And in 1866, Lewandowski received the title of Royal Music Director. So now we're going to listen to some clips of Lewandowski, and there's some very interesting pieces here. Now, we're going to listen to the Chadodi, which is going to be familiar to many of you, but what I want to do is skip to 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
50-second
Yeah,
mark?
and then we're
Okay.
just going to listen to an excerpt.
All right, let me,
And what you're going to hear, we sang in Akron and probably sung in the 60s and 70s in virtually every synagogue that had a late Friday night service with choir. It's going to be familiar too.
This is how Shabbat is welcomed.
Everybody did this.
I love that L'Chadodi. Could have
Stop this piece. So, I make no bones about the fact that I happen to be,
been really simple, right? It could
I happen to be a big fan of using the organ. I think it's unfortunate that it's hardly used anymore, even in Reformed congregations. I'll tell you, my story is that I grew up in an Orthodox synagogue. I mentioned this last week. And when I was in Cantorial school, I found my way to a synagogue on the Upper West Side, Anshe Chesed, where Charlie Block was the cantor. I walk into the synagogue, and it is a traditional service with, they didn't cut anything. I think they did a full Torah reading. Everything about the service was traditional. They had a professional quartet and an organ. The choir was masterful. And the organist, who I became friendly with, was magnificent. And the way that they would play off each other and improvise was just unbelievable. And I said to myself, my God, this is real music. And trite melodies that I thought were just trite congregational melodies, all of a sudden came to life. When I graduated, when I was in my junior year in cantorial school, I got a job in Norwich, Connecticut, and I had a rabbi. They had an organ that they hadn't used, but the rabbi was a strong proponent of the organ. And so we were able to use it. We got some pushback from the congregation, but he was very strongly in favor of it. And I've said to my friend Dusty Schwartz, they still use the organ at Park Avenue Synagogue, usually for the
Yes.
Torah service.
Yes, they do.
And I tune in regularly to Park Avenue Synagogue, and I've said to Ozzy, I said, don't ever stop using that organ, because there aren't many places left that are using it. And I think that's unfortunate. But again, that's my particular peccadillo. All right, let's pull up now the next selection. I want to talk a little bit about this. This is interesting. Okay, this is going to be
I love this one.
the Tzaddik Katamar of Lewandowski, which is sung on Friday night in virtually every synagogue as a congregational melody, right? Tzaddik Katamar Yifrach.
Yep.
But what's going to be interesting about this clip, it's unique. This is Hazamir, okay, with, it happens to be that Dr. Ruth Westheimer, Dr. Ruth,
Yeah.
she is a strong supporter of Hazamir. And so she was being honored at this particular event. And this happens to be her favorite piece of synagogue music. So they allowed her to conduct it. So now we're going to hear this piece.
Do the amazing. Help save lives. Donate plasma today at CSL Plasma.
You can kick it now. There we go. Oh, what's happening? All right, what's happening to our sound?
Sounds on, so skip around. It's weird.
Because it started.
It's the video itself. I'm not sure.
I've checked these out all again yesterday. There shouldn't be any problem with the video.
I'm gonna try something. I'm just gonna stop
Maybe
share.
reload. Yeah.
Stop share, reload it, okay? Okay. one, everything's checked. Here.
Sure heard the commercial fine.
So weird.
Stand by, I'm gonna see, I'm just gonna play for us. Sharing, I'm gonna play for us, I wanna see if we can hear it.
Okay, sure.
Okay, just give me a second here. Okay, I'm just gonna switch to that. Is that Chrome? Yeah, that's it. Okay. This is just for us.
Weird.
Let's go to, we'll go to the next one and see if it's,
Okay.
okay. So on the next one, so this is interesting, and I'm sorry, I hope we can come back and listen to that another time.
I gotta switch back to Zoom. so-
Okay, so this is actually, the next piece you're gonna hear, hopefully, is a two-part arrangement, which was done by Park Avenue Synagogue. And you'll tell by the way it's recorded, it was done during COVID. But it's such an exquisite, beautiful arrangement of the piece that I wanted to include it.
Here goes.
So exquisite.
Yes.
I don't know who did that arrangement. I'm gonna guess it was either Raymond Goldstein in Israel. It might have been Ozzy's music director, David Enlow. Whoever
Yeah.
did it, I tip my hat to them. It is just so profoundly gorgeous. I will tell you, so the woman on the right, her name is Rachel Brooke.
Yeah.
And Rachel was the #2 at Park Avenue. She's now succeeded Alberto Mizrahi and Anshe Emmett in
Yes.
Chicago.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
We became quite familiar with Park Avenue Synagogue and kind of started.
yeah,
So they did that
right.
for quite a bit.
Right,
really
so again,
Really.
let's go back now and see, let's just try the other
Yeah.
piece
I
again.
see Tybal has a question here, yeah, or a comment.
I just wanted to say, because you know, three of us live in Maryland, that Rachel Brooke was at a Reform synagogue right near where the three of us live in Maryland before she went to Park Avenue.
Which
Well,
one?
she went to Cantorial School. She's graduate of JTS's Cantorial School.
But she was at Temple Beth Ami.
Oh, really?
Yep, she was at Temple Beth Ami, I forget how many years, and then she went to Park Avenue, and now she's in Chicago. I mean, you said that she's in Chicago, but I thought it was very interesting that she started at, well, I don't know if that was her first pulpit, but she was absolutely in a Reform synagogue.
All right.
Yeah, she's also graduate of Manhattan School of Music. She's really wonderful. She's a wonderful singer, and a wonderful human being, and you know, I was really pleased when she got that position to succeed Alberto. All right, let's go back and see if we can.
I'll try that again.
We're gonna try it again. If it doesn't work, we go on.
Sometimes I just want to rent a card. Go, you know?
I do know. And I think
All right, it's not working. All right, so let's go on, okay?
Okay.
All right, so now on the next piece, Uvnu Choyomar, this is the paragraph with Eitz Chaim He in Torah service.
Right. Oh, right.
This is an audio recording with Naftali Hershtik, who was the Chazan of the great synagogue Heichal Shlomo in Jerusalem. And in my humble opinion, I've been saying this for years, this piece contains what I consider to be the most beautiful 8 bars of synagogue choral music ever composed. And I will point that out to you when we get there.
He was here a year ago for Cantor Shipman's concert.
No, that was his son.
Oh,
Naftali.
son. Okay.
That was Naftali.
Okay.
Who,
Wrong.
by the way, sings at a progressive, he officiates at a progressive Orthodox synagogue in the Hamptons and officiates with all male choir.
Oh, okay.
He's
Oh,
magnificent, by the way.
Last
he's-
name, recognize the last name.
Naftali, Netanyahu is magnificent like his father. All right, let's hope this comes out. Page 26. about to hear what I consider the most gorgeous 8 measures of music ever composed for the synagogue. And after those 8 measures, he goes back and does the same thing again, the refrain, but he puts his own unique spin on it. Okay, so listen to the first 8 bars that are just chorus, and then to hear what Naphtali does. Okay. When I pass on, if I make it to Olam Haba and get to a shul, this is what I hope the synagogue in Olam Haba is like. Because to me, this is synagogue music. This is what synagogue music should be. And I deeply lament the fact that it isn't except in a few exclusive places anymore. But this, to me, as I said, that section is just overwhelming and it chokes me up no matter how many times I hear it. And I did a recording a number of years ago with my choir, and this is one of the pieces that we did. Not exquisitely as this, but it's.
You know who did a good job of this? You know, that's what Kathy Sebo did at
Yeah.
Bethany.
Yeah, and it was gorgeous.
We heard this for like,
It was gorgeous.
It's a classic. It's a
Can't
very
speak to
well-known
here.
piece of synagogue music. So, okay.
boy, is that pretty.
All right, we've got one more piece to listen to. This is Lewandowski's probably his best known piece, okay? It's his Hallelujah. I refer to it as the Jewish Hallelujah Chorus. I know when we did it in Akron, the High Holidays, congregation, there were certain pieces that the congregation just waited for, absolutely waited for. They got a little mad at me because we would flip on the second day, Rosh Hashanah, I would do the a setting of Hallelujah that was written by Naumburg. But the first day we did this piece. And as I also mentioned last week, sometimes you run into, it's really a great piece of synagogue music when non-Jewish choruses are doing it. And this performance is by a non-Jewish chorus. We showed you some Lewandowski, and there'll be some other performances that I'll be showing you in the next couple of weeks where they are pieces of synagogue music that are being performed by non-Jewish choruses. And here's another example. In USC.
the organ.
It's, Gary Howard.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do need, I mean, I was blessed
And
during.
they did it with a small choir. It was very good.
You need more. I was blessed in Akron. At the height, I had 24 singers, but usually I had at least a dozen. And on average, I had 15, 16. So, so that's where we're going to open up for questions and discussions. That's where we're going to stop this evening. I can tell you we're off next week, and then in 2 weeks, we will look at, somebody had asked me last week about Janowski. We're going to do Janowski. We're going to do Helfman and possibly get to Sholem Secunda as well next week. So we've got 2 more sessions to do. I'll be in New York next week. So questions, please.
Hand raised.
Yeah, and I have a question. She can-
Tybo?
So I was the one who said something about Max Janowski last week. And I just wanted to say, when you just played for us that last piece and said non-Jewish choirs or non-Jewish institutions, because who knows who's singing or not. During the pandemic, you know how things happen. I decided to listen early in the pandemic to every single Avinu Malkeinu I could find, and of Janowski's, his arrangement. And my favorite Avinu Malkeinu was done by State University of New York, Potsdam Crane Chorus for a Christmas concert. So despite the fact on the video, you see people like in the back in Santa Claus hats, and there are these decorations. Anyway, I don't know if you happen to have heard that one, but I still think, forget Barbra Streisand, give me Crane Chorus with Katie Beck.
We'll listen. We'll listen. I think I've got a recording with Jan Pierce that we're going to play, and also we'll listen to the Streisand one too, because obviously, you know, with her fame, she made the piece a lot more famous than it had been. But yeah, we will. We'll listen to Janowski, and we'll listen to Helfman and
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on like a non-Jewish choir, or even just a choir singing outside of shul using God's name? You don't, it doesn't bother you?
No.
Okay.
It's you know, it's very interesting how, you know, even Jewish choruses are doing it in concerts. I was listening when I did a recording. I had them say Ado Shem. You know, the trick that they've used in the Zamir chorale.
Yeah, how Zamir uses Ado Mai. Yeah.
That's what they've done.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because I'm wondering, because I'm gonna be at some point, hopefully doing a presentation on Jewish choral music to classroom choir teachers and saying, hey, use this, you know, I'm gonna call it beyond dreidel dreidel. That, hey, there's music out there and everyone's just doing a little token Hanukkah piece and calling it a day. So I'm just wondering.
There's a high school choir,
Yeah,
because I have music.
okay.
I've got some stuff that you could use, that is some of transcontinental. But there are some, Ida Ruth Meisels did a wonderful medley that I have.
Oh, great.
An SATB of the most popular of the Hanukkah songs.
Okay.
There's also, there's some other things. And a number of years ago, we did there's some Samuel Adler stuff. Did some nice things, and we did a recording with Kent State Choral for public radio.
Okay.
There's also a lovely piece called Like the Legend of Michael Isaacson that works really, really well.
Okay.
But you and I will get together. I'll get you all this music.
That would be great. Yeah. I was just
So-
wondering if I should be advising people to be sensitive towards that.
I think it's okay. And again, even Jewish choruses, I'm finding more and more, you know, obviously in the Orthodox community, they don't say, they don't say the name of God, but I think it's fine. I think if you have some sensitivity, you could ask them to say Adomai, but I personally wouldn't have a problem.
Okay.
Other questions? I hope you're enjoying this.
We
As I
are
say,
definitely enjoying this.
I'm extremely passionate about synagogue choral music. And as I've said, that's really what took me there were 2 things that took me to Bethel and Akron. One was that it was close to my hometown of Pittsburgh, where I had family, but the other is the incredible legacy. One of the things that happened at Bethel, I don't know how many of you know the name Jerome Kopmar. So Jerry Kopmar did great things with children's chorus. He had them singing, commissioning new works, singing 3-part harmony music
Here she goes.
And
You,
there's but he started that in Akron, and then he went to Dayton and did the same thing. And they were commissioning new works every year, and you know,
when were you at Bethel in Akron?
I was there from 80 to 2015,
Okay. Before we
35
started
years.
exploring. That's the one that says JCC, right?
It's now at the JCC, correct? Yeah,
Okay.
they sold the building.
Oh, they sold the building. Oh,
They
okay.
sold the building. They had a buyer very quickly. A Montessori school bought it.
Oh, okay. So they were
They,
not.
they
in that-
moved over to the JCC about 2-3 years before my return.
Oh, okay. We became aware of them after that. And, you know,
But yeah, that there was a great choral legacy there, and it kind of fallen by the wayside, and they wanted it to be revived. And I said, great, that's exactly what I want to do. So
didn't know that about them.
Josh, question, comment?
No, just thank you, and guess everyone's welcome to stay, but I know we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Well, you see you on Shabbat morning.
I'll see you. I will see you for this class in a couple of weeks. But yeah, Cantor Stein will be saying a few brief remarks as part of Cantor Rosenbaum's installation this Shabbat.
Now, you gonna need help driving in the other two sessions? So I can do that from home. I can do that from Maryland. If you
I'm
want.
going to be there I'm going to be there with you in person at the synagogue on June 22nd. I believe Shani Kadis is going to be there on the 29th because I am out of town the last one, but.
Okay, just in case.
But thank you.
You and pleasure.